there are going to be more speeches to come. But what was the point of this speech at this time in the campaign?
Well, I think Hillary really wanted to identify the central economic challenge that we face, which is that while we are growing and we can grow stronger, the central challenge we have is that incomes aren't rising fast enough. And she has ideas about how to do that, new ideas to add to the mix. But that's really she wanted to communicate to the voters what her goal and priority will be. And I think presidential elections are really tests of visions, and she's giving people a test of what her vision is.
There's a lot of critiques of not just this speech, but of the general economic policy coming out of the Clinton campaign that says it's in opposition to President Clinton's line, the era of big government is over. Is Hillary Clinton for the era of big government? Is she agree with the line that it should be over, or is she for bigger government to help people?
I think that the truth is that these kinds of discussions about the size of government really are besides the point. It's really about how to make the economy work for people. You don't want to have a big government that isn't working, that isn't solutions based. But you do want to have a government that's actually helping the private sector. Private sector is where we create jobs, but the federal government, national governments, state governments, local governments do help the private sector create jobs and ultimately raise wages. So I think this is a little bit of false debate, on the big government versus small government. We want an effective government that actually supports economic growth, and not just economic growth, but fairness in the economy so middle incomes rise again.
Just as a factual matter, is it right to say that a lot of what she's proposing would increase the size of the government, just factually?
Take example of profit sharing. Profit sharing is really realigning the incentives in our tax code to ensure that middle incomes employees, not just management, but workers benefit from profitable firms. And that's not really government mandating. It doesn't increase the size. It's really a way in which you can create incentives. So I think this focus on big government, small government is kind of besides the point.
All right, I'm going to move on, although you chose one of the provisions that isn't about expanding the government. I still think there are a lot in there that do expand the government. But let me move on. This move that she made today, which she's done in the past, to engage the Republicans now rather than the Democrats, are there ideas that she's for now on the economy that aren't popular within the Democratic Party? Bill Clinton, for instance, supported free trade when he ran. Can you point to anything she talked about today or that she's for where she'll need to sell Democrats that it's the right idea?
I think the reality is that Democrats and independents are really focused on the wage challenge we face in the economy. Now, she has a perspective about ensuring that that's within a balanced budget over the long term. But I don't think the debates really are, I think the debate in the country, Democrats and independents are more aligned on these topics. And I think that's an actual strategic advantage. Just being a political, talking about this from the political side, I actually think there's a broader agreement between independents and Democrats on the economy, and so some of the kind of wedge issues aren't where they were in the past. So I think she has an address that's really focused on the concerns the American people have and isn't thinking tactically about alienating a Democrat, alienating a Republican, speaking to one group or another.
In the context of this campaign, then, can we expect her to lay out a deficit reduction plan to get to a balanced budget, and if so, by what date?
I think you'll see her lay out the costs of her plans and how they fit into a budget framework that lowers the deficit. I'm not out rolling out her deficit targets ahead of her, et cetera. But I think, she has always believed in being fiscally responsible, and that when she rolls out her policies, that they will be in a budget framework that actually lowers the deficit as we go.
But not necessarily get it down to zero as her husband did, to run a surplus.
Well, as you know, when President Clinton ran, he had a particular target. He exceeded that target. Perhaps Hillary will do that when she's president as well.